We wanted to talk about the hybrid kickoff. You guys did it in the XFL last year. How do you think, how different was it for you compared to everything you've done in your career? How do you think it's going to affect the NFL?
Yeah, so we did that kick in the first XFL, which was in 2019?
Yeah.
So we did the same kickoff in 2019. So I was used to it going into the last season's XFL. And so whenever the NFL made the move to adopt this kickoff, I was shocked, honestly. I did not see it coming. And I think the fans and players didn't see it coming either. But they preach, they continue to preach health and player safety. And I really firmly believe that the NFL cares and believes about that, because you do see the effects of CTE and player injuries and the tenure of NFL players. And you see, the consequences of playing the game of football that we love. And as fans, sometimes you don't see that. And so I do believe that it is for player health and safety, but at the same time, they also want to generate returns. I think the kickoff has evolved to, it had evolved to up until the point of this new rule of as basically a pointless play. Kick it out of the back of the end zone, hit a touchback, go to the restroom, get your snack break or whatever you need to do, because, Patrick Mahomes is going to run up on the 20-yard line during, the CVS commercial break and start the drive. Like it eliminated the returners. It eliminated the Devin Hesters of the world, because kickers just, were hitting it out of the back of the end zone. So I'm all for it, man. I think it's great. I think you're going to see a lot more points scored because of field position. And you'll see a lot more electric returns because of this new rule. So I think it's a win-win for both. I think it's a win for player health and safety, and then it makes the kickoff more interesting.
Yeah, that's what we've been telling people too, on the show, is this is an exciting time for NFL, because the kickoff, like you said, it was essentially being done away with. Yeah. So to make it an actual play, not just to keep the kickoff in the game, but to make it a play where there's scheming and blocking and different plays can run, and the defense can do different. They might drop people. I don't know how it all works, but I'm excited to see it on the field. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
I think it could change up the way you build a roster in terms of some of like your fringe guys, where maybe you wouldn't have kept a guy if 95% of the kicks go out of the back of the end zone. But if this guy's a great return guy, you might have to make a hard decision, because he could be a weapon, because he's going to get to touch the ball 3 or 4 times in a game, as opposed to not touching it at all the whole game. So I think it adds a lot of extra strategy in terms of roster building and all kinds of stuff to the game that maybe some people haven't thought about.
Yeah, that's right. And I think you'll see coordinators get very creative, as far as, like you mentioned, scheming, but the return game has, in college, we got to take advantage of it a little bit. When I was at Kansas State, where our special teams and with Tyler Lockett, we were phenomenal at the return game. And so, when you transition to the National Football League, teams said, we don't want to kick it to Tyler Lockett. We don't want to kick it to some of these big name returners, just hit it out the back. It eliminated the fun out of it. So I look forward to it, man. There's all kinds of different kinks that we worked out, in the first XFL and then now this XFL, that I think the NFL won't have to worry about, because we solved some of those problems early on. So if you look back at last year, our XFL tape, the first maybe 4 games of the year, we were getting beat up. I think Adam Schefter posted one of the videos that the St. Louis team ran a reverse on us, and then they took it to the house. So for the first 4 games, we really struggled, and it started to have an effect on our game, obviously, with field position and things like that. And so a name that you guys are familiar with, Coach Greg Williams, who was in Cleveland for quite a bit, he stepped in. I remember he came into a meeting, and I knew he was going to do this because I talked to him ahead of time. And he stepped in and he said, all right, guys, forget everything that we're doing. This is how we're going to do it going forward. It's basically my way, and that's how we're going to do it. And so from that point on, instead of being defensive and kind of catching the returner and blocking and staying safe, we started to become way more aggressive. And so Coach Williams had wanted me to kick the ball wide. And you see me, if you watch the tape, you'd see me kind of flirt with the sideline a little bit in order to pin the returner. Because as you know, in this new kickoff rule, the cover unit can't move until the ball is touched.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so hang time doesn't matter anymore. It's purely directional. And so Coach Williams wanted me to put it out wide And that's what I did. So I put it out wide, and I think we were pinning them on like the 15-yard line. I mean, their average start point had to be on average inside the 20. I mean, we were killing it the last half of the season because Greg wanted to be aggressive. And I think that's his, as you guys know, I mean, that was his mentality in the NFL was let's be aggressive, let's be attacking, and let's make plays. And that's what we did. And so I think you'll see maybe a difference between teams in the NFL trying to figure out what works. And hopefully they watch the XFL tape because it was a night and day transition for us. It went from we're getting our butts whooped on a kickoff unit standpoint to all of a sudden we're making plays and we're making the opposing team drive 85 yards instead of, 60. So it was a big transition for us to figure out. And Greg Williams is all responsible for that, man. He fixed it for us.
That doesn't sound like him. My way or the highway. That doesn't sound like the Greg Williams that I know. I wanted to I was thinking of another question to ask. I was like, man, you've played in both of these leagues. I was thinking, like, if there was any way one thing to change about the NFL, what would it be? And then I started thinking about like kind of the state of officiating, and we really like some of the things that the XFL and now the UFL are doing with transparency, having the skybox guy. Like, do you think that's something that the NFL should try to adopt? I feel like if they're willing to try this kickoff thing, why would they not also look in that direction for other meaningful changes?
I agree wholeheartedly. I think the fans need to hear. It needs to be an open book, right? As far as officiating goes, because now when you talk about like the play calling, I think that can be a hairy subject in the National Football League because the playbook is sacred in the NFL. And so you wouldn't want to give up anything like that, on national television, especially if the opponent could be listening in. But as far as officiating goes, whenever they did that back in 2018 with, Mike Pereira and Dean Blandino, we had many meetings with them beforehand. And they said, we're going to be as transparent as possible. We want the fans to hear the discussions with the officials on the field, to look inside the replay booth. I mean, why in any reason would that not be transparent? And so I think that would be really cool if the NFL took that over. And I think fans would appreciate that because at the end of the day, we want to get the call right. And I think there's sometimes a lot of things that aren't called right in the NFL, and all of us are scratching our heads like it was blatantly obviously that was pass interference. Like why can that not be reviewed or overturned? And the XFL has found that kind of happy medium, not even happy medium, basically just saying, we're going to expose the officials and we're going to get the call right. And so they do that through replay. They do that through the official up in the box. They do that through Dean Blandino in New York, and they're all watching how it goes down. And I think it's been really successful for the XFL and the UFL now. And I think the NFL, might look into something like that. I think it'd be really neat.
I was going to say, I hope so, because, we deal a lot, we entertain a lot of different audiences. So we do a lot on social media, and I hear a lot of fans that are definitely going down the path of being very convinced anymore that some of this stuff is really fixed, that some of these, because like you said, some of this stuff is so blatantly obvious. It's like, how could you get that wrong? You're a professional referee. And I think that with the rapid growth of sports betting and everything that's going on these days, the NFL needs to be very careful. I'm afraid they're walking a pretty tight line, and it's a sport that I love. It's a league that I love. I mean, we do this podcast. We love this sport, and I would just hate to see them tip over to that other side of where people no longer really give it validity anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. And I think it'd be fun for, now granted the XFL switched back to kind of the old style kickoff, so we're not doing it anymore. But I do think it would be neat for NFL fans to watch the UFL, and I encourage that, to watch the officiating transparency and try to push that opinion kind of onto the National Football League, because I enjoy watching it myself. I mean, I'm watching games on Saturday in the hotel room before our game on Sunday, and I'm like, this is perfect. If the officials don't get it right, let's get it right. I mean, that's part of the reason of being officials and playing the game of football. So yeah, I think it's a great thing that the UFL introduced, and I'm glad they did it.